These are the reasons, according to a Kingston study apparently. This is specifically about autistic individuals and individuals with developmental disabilities. This doesn't even include physical disabilities on top of it. It doesn't include being a male on top of it. You don't think there's any pressure on a male. There always is. People always want, and the go-to expected to do the work to get it done is generally male. I'm going to focus on, first of all, people's assumptions, hate groups, and who it is they realistically all target. We'll start off with targeting the weak. Those who are considered different are considered weak, according to nearly all of our societies throughout history. Spartans weren't the first ones to practice infanticide, nor were the Carthaginians, nor were the Romans. And yes, the Romans would. Claudius was only spared that particular Roman mercy. It would have been considered a mercy by the Romans, and by the Spartans, and by the Carthaginians to grow up with those disabilities, because you would be socially outcast. By the way, the Chinese practice that as well. The Koreans. We've been finding ritualistic infanticide of disabled individuals worldwide. But with autism, that's different, isn't it? You might not notice that till later, but they might not speak until later. Some 70% of the infanticide that was committed, that they weren't able to tell if there was anything physically wrong with the baby. It seemed like it would be a sacrifice. Well, it wouldn't have been a sacrifice. This is a child with autism who hasn't spoken yet. He might be the next Leonardo da Vinci. Might be the next Nikola Tesla. You're never going to know it, though. I'm stressed out, obviously. I want to cigarette real bad. When it comes to your autism assumptions and the term mentally ill, you get to see how, as a male, I'm not allowed to speak up about something wrong that a woman has done. I'm not allowed to say it to her. And this is something that's important, right? In a relationship or a friendship. When I say relationship, what I mean, you could have a relationship with your family. You could be adopted, so you have no relationship with your family. But by relationship, a lot of you guys mean something different, and these words become interchangeable for different meanings. If you tell a woman that something that she has done is wrong, or that an assumption that she has made and is projecting onto you is wrong, she can go to the whole Me Too thing, as well as the Kill All Men thing. Two very big movements right now. That's never going to work. That is never going to work if I keep picking up the same pink lighter, but I'm stressed. For a male in the United States, a lot of women expect that we treat them like princesses. And you know what? For most of us, we just try to give common courtesy. If I hold the door open, I'll hold it open for a man or a woman. And by the way, all of you men who do hold open the door for me, thank you. And all of you women who have done the same for me, thank you too. You're doing a lot to fight racism and sexism both by doing that. If you're not racist or sexist about holding the door open for somebody, like say you open up the door for you, but you're kind of small, you've already got the door open. You're going to be standing there for a second to get around the door anyway. Let them in. I mean, I have seen disabled people and people in wheelchairs too that have held a door open for somebody because they had to get it open, get it around the thing, and well, some of them go in at the angle, but some of the doors they have for the entrances, like the terraces on Pearl, it's not necessarily that possible because there's tables and chairs on either side, and then there's the trellis. Well, we're not going to go off on that because that's not about me. I have physical disabilities that make it so that I have to spend money to hire people to help me to do everything, but I make $822 a month as a disabled person, and that is not enough to live on. For all the work that I spent growing up, I wasn't going to have the same opportunities as other people, no matter how much you want to say this is the great and wonderful America, look at this person or look at that person. Look at those people, you're right, and look at the advantages that they started off with. Found one that works. There's the stigma that's attached and the whole game of telephone. If you listen to a lot of the stuff that's said about me worldwide, nobody can get their story straight. The evidence I got, there's so much of it in my vehicle. I got 15 bags full of evidence that show how it is that it's so confusing and why. I have to deal with people who, when I tell the truth about them, want to claim that I'm attacking them. It's primarily women that do this because we've taught them that they're princesses and that even an insult is something that a man is supposed to come to the rescue for. I know a lot of lesbians who still do that. A lot of lesbians who come try to find a decent dude who is dumb enough to believe the damsel in distress thing. Good men are harmed by this. This emotionally damages us for life. I mean, we're not in it to try to get your vagina, but then if we need help, we don't get the same thing. We get told what to do. Well, why don't you go to your friends and have them help you? As an American male, we don't really, in most cases, ever have a real friend. We think we got a good friend of 20 or 30 years, but all it takes is one of them 3 lies. Doesn't matter if it's true or not, everyone's going to go hide. The ones who are still going to be your friends are only going to be your friends in the closet. I'll only be your friend in the closet with the lights off. If nobody knows about it, then it's okay. Even though Natalie Bollinger was the one who was on drugs, I'm the one who was treated like he was on drugs. Everywhere that I went after Natalie was killed to try to get a UA to show that I was not on drugs. Every hospital, every clinic, they refused. People that I personally knew, like Candace Bondurant, she was a mandated reporter in the state of Colorado. What she said about the police there, or the sheriff's department there in Haxton, Colorado, that scared the hell out of anybody. especially somebody with kids. I remember Officer Michael Beard's name. Do you know why I make sure I remember his name? Because he scared the hell out of Candace Bondurant. I've got literally dozens of people recorded and the evidence recorded and posted on my Facebook and on my YouTube in their voices, in their words. What they said while this stuff was going on at the beginning versus what they can remember now. I recorded both. When these people were telling me that their friends and family were being threatened, people were threatening to kill Sarah Bacon and her children and her husband. People were threatening to kill Cara Rogers, aka Cara Mia, and her child and her husband. And then there's all these other people like Amanda DeMette citing the corruption in western Nebraska for the reason she was too afraid to come forward. With Marcia Estrada, a mental health care worker, also recorded on my channel, in her own voice as well. Speaking about being afraid. Speaking of how nobody was going to come forward because western Nebraska is so notorious for its corruption. And then she spoke of how aware she was of that corruption by speaking the names and her professional opinion of many of the predators that I had to deal with prior to Marcia Estrada. Marcia Estrada states very plainly, very clearly that I am not schizophrenic, that I am not delusional. But this is what people were trying to infer, that I must be schizophrenic or delusional because they use the term mentally ill. That is a death sentence here in America. Who are the first people the Nazis went after? How about the Chinese? How about the Greeks? How about the Romans? How about the North Africans? They're probably the most notorious for it. What do you do with refugees? What do you do with people who have no home? What do you do with people who are mentally ill? These are the first people that you target because they're the easiest to target, because they're the easiest to discredit, because they're the most likely to be alone, aka social isolation. 77% of those who are autistic cited in the Netherlands, or they're willing to do this for us. I wish I was there. I wish I was in the Netherlands. So badly. As a male, all someone has to do is infer that I might do something bad. And you guys, all you see is Lenny, and I get to tend the rabbits. You have no idea how many people have told me, hey, you should just be put down like a dog. How many people have threatened to kill me and my friends and family? And how many of those people who are threatening and intimidating were police officers? And I recorded the situations the best that I could. But also there's a matter of resources. $822 a month is not enough to live on. When I was in housing, I still needed a caseworker, a case manager, someone that I could go to right when I was harmed and get help turning it into the Nebraska State Patrol. Because here's the thing. I went to all the mandated reporters that I could before Natalie Bollinger was killed. I went to the police in chapel, same as afterwards. I needed help with everything electronic. Everything electronic that I'm able to do, I'm only able to do because somebody else helped me to be able to do it. When it comes to in person, that's what I mean, is literally in person. That is the easiest way for me to do it. Anything else is going to be longer. If you're going to force me to text it, here's the thing about texting. You're going to misunderstand most of it. You show how much you respect somebody by how well you listen. The less you respect them, the more likely you are to talk over them and dismiss them, to tell them what to do, what to think, and what to feel, to give advice. And if they don't take the advice because they're not capable, they're not in a situation where your advice and your pretty words or pretty memes are going to work. You show them that you disrespect them by pawning them off on someone else, telling them, oh, well, I'll look up a number and I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. Well, I could look the number up myself in 5 minutes. It's the fact that I have to go to these places alone. How about you set up a time to listen to me so you know what's going on? Understand that I am victimized often. I have to go to homeless addicts for help because I'll get treated like an addict if I go to the police or to the hospitals as a homeless person. There's people that tell me about how broke they are across the internet from countries where they claim they only get $200 a year. I don't believe they're really in those countries, and here's why. They got a computer and internet. A lot of the electronics that I have, I followed the procedure that I was supposed to. There were things that I didn't know how to do, and I went to people to try to learn how to do them, and I paid people to teach me how to do them, and they didn't follow through. All it did was cost me money, and because I'm disabled, it's their word versus mine, and I'll just get called mentally ill, and magically, it means that I must be schizophrenic to most of the world. You assume the worst when you hear the term mentally ill. Even if you claim you don't, you all have brothers and sisters you've used that on. Here in America, looks are the most important thing. There's a reputation of a family name, right? My last name is Schwartz. That's a German Jew's name. A lot of people are looking at BLM right now and going, oh, poor black people, poor black people. I feel bad for them too. I feel bad for anyone feeding into this as well. Predators target the people who they believe they're most likely to get away with targeting. That's what we need to focus on. All of the victims, right? All of us. That officer who knows that he's going to get away with shooting your son for being black also knows that he can shoot me for being homeless and autistic. And he's more likely to kill me for being homeless. He's also more likely to kill me for being disabled, statistically speaking. But as your son is black, he is still your son, which means that he is a male, as am I. And 96% of those killed by police every year are male. We have a lot of women who are wanting little princess parties about whether we're not whether or not we're using the proper word that each and every individual one of them expects us to know for some odd reason. Life is complicated enough. Can't you just be a person and I'll be a person? When it comes to how men are treated when they're taken advantage of, they're treated like it's their fault. They shouldn't have been there. They shouldn't have trusted those people. But as someone who is called mentally ill, you have to have someone else involved. Or the term mentally ill means that they get to pretend it never happened, your word versus theirs. I've recorded how often that happens, and you get to see how I rail against it. How I'm not happy with it. Some of these people might be scammers, some of them not. But with all the people from these web sleuth groups that ended up being either scammers or alcoholics or drug addicts, I don't have people I can trust on the internet any better than I can trust anybody out here on the streets. I know that most of the ones here are on drugs. In Boulder it was different. Was different. But the police went through and ignored all of the meth addicts and meth salesmen. Made it look real bad on the homeless community. Make it look bad on a lot of our individual communities. And then they want to blame the taxpayers because they didn't do their jobs for people that don't matter. They know that all they got to do is say mentally ill. Mentally ill, according to the law, means that they have to do their jobs as mandated reporters. But mentally ill, as it is used, is, oh, well, they automatically don't matter. They're automatically discredited because they're mentally ill. We can literally do whatever they want, whatever we want to them, because their family doesn't care enough to take care of them. Their family doesn't care what happens to them. And if family doesn't care, nobody cares. They're homeless. I grew up in the system, being beaten on, being raped by the kids that I was locked up with, by other foster kids, other kids in group homes, and also by some of the staff member and parents in some of these places. I say some. All the facilities were bad. When you go to these places and they teach you about what you're supposed to do, who you're supposed to go to as a mandated reporter, and you're victimized in that facility, and you've gone through. See, this is one of the things you don't understand about being in an actual facility, an actual institution as a child. You still have to go to school, but now you also have to go to special classes, like domestic violence classes. That's right. Sexual assault classes. That's right. Whether or not you committed a sexual assault or an offense is absolutely arbitrary. You're going to these classes, you're going to learn this stuff. And basically, here's what you learn. You learn that you are in the system. You already know that because you can see it in your surroundings. The doors that lock, the people in the facilities with professional-looking uniforms. Yes, it is a very professional-looking place. Now it comes to the mandated reporters in there. They're all mandated reporters. And they're taught that when they're told by one of the people there that that person has been victimized by a staff member or another person in there, they're supposed to report it to the police immediately and Child Protective Services. This is what they teach us in these classes. They have us watch the McGruff films and some other cartoon type stuff, and some of them are live action about what you're supposed to do in a different emergency situation. Sometimes they use the example of what are you supposed to do? Your friend gets bullied and pushed down and her ankle gets hurt. What are you supposed to do? Them kind of scenarios. They tell us you're supposed to go to a teacher or a church clergy member or a police officer or a school nurse. They always tell you a school nurse or a school guidance counselor is a good one to go to. Now, while you're still in these facilities, and you're going to the people in that facility that are all mandated reporters, literally every single one down to the janitor, such as at Child Study and Treatment Center in Washington State, as well as a facility called Fairfax Mental Hospital in Kent, Washington. You tell people about the abuse, but no one cares. They might move one of the other students to a different room if they're your roommate. You're still going to go to every class together with them. You're still going to eat in the chow hall with them. Even if they're caught red-handed doing this to you. As a male, you're told that you need to shut up about it. Just admitting that anything like that could ever possibly happen to you demasculates you. And if you're demasculated as a man, it means that you're quote-unquote worthless to our society. We get to hear from women telling us what a man is, what he does, what he takes care of, what he's supposed to do as a man, as a man, as a man. We have all these things projected onto us that we're supposed to do as a man. But you don't stop to ask, are we capable? Do we have the ability to do so? My physical disabilities are not going to go away. They're only going to get worse. When I'm told that's my fault for not following the doctor's instructions, I'm not capable of following the doctor's instructions. When I'm told to make all these phone calls to all these different places and I'm stuck in public trying to make these phone calls to all these places, it gets me in trouble. You tell me who to go to, but I have to try to do that safely because, as I learned in places like Fairfax, just because you tell on somebody to the right people that you're supposed to, who are legally obligated, they have to do this job, and yet they won't because they're friends of some of these people. I remember there was a woman named Gretchen at Child Study and Treatment Center in the 1990s. And I told her about some of the abuse that happened there. So did some of the other students that were there, but the guy that we were telling on was her friend. She went drinking with him afterwards, and I'm trying real hard not to get all winky-blinky at you. I do apologize for that. A lot of times I look at the ground or I look at the dashboard, so I don't end up doing that. But what I like to do is just half of my face so that if I wink or blink on one side, they don't see it on the other one. It's because people are mean to me for doing it. I can't turn off Tourette syndrome, and the medications they give me for it don't help. And they're life-threatening, liver-damaging. One of the medications that I was on as a kid, it turns out it gives people leukemia. How creepy is that? Then when you try to tell on a police officer who's harmed you, to the other police officers, or to preachers, or to any other mandated reporter as an at-risk child or an adult, you get locked up, mentally ill. Males start committing suicide in this country at the age of 15, at 5 times the rate of girls. This is because of the man up, man up, man up thing. The whole, oh, dad's going to work. You're the man of the house, protect the women. You watch them old westerns. You're the man of the house, protect the women. We watch these war movies. You're the man, protect the women. We have it ingrained in our brain, we're supposed to protect the women. We're also supposed to be in competition with other men and so on and so forth. We're told that everything that is wrong in the world is all men's fault for existing. Well, I have fought for the rights of black people. I am not included in their plight, despite the fact that I go through worse. You want to tell me about slavery 200 years ago, or even 100 years ago? I'm telling you there's slavery alive today. And that the most likely people to be victimized today, as always, are the disabled and the homeless. Those who are destitute and alone. Those who are socially isolated. You don't allow them to be a part of your reindeer games. Those of you who are American and celebrate Christmas here will understand that. The whole Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer thing. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, what's that about? It's about a reindeer that was different, and everybody made fun of him. But then it turns out his red nose makes it so you can see through the fog and see through the blizzard and see through the snow. So Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer saved Christmas. He's like a folk superhero deer, kind of like Bambi. You can call me Flower if you want to. Bambi was a pretty good movie too, right? I try to show you that I'm a human too. You pretend that we don't have emotions. Yes, we do. As a male, I'm not allowed to have any emotions except for, well, Hollywood stoic. I'm supposed to be Hollywood stoic. That's what a man is. A woman says it, and a man is supposed to say, as you wish. We're told by women who will only date good-looking men what they want in a man. And the looks aren't important. That's what she'll tell us. Many of you do this. And then you date a man who is just good-looking and hunky and exhibits none of the traits that you express that you're interested in. We have taught women to do this. See, we taught women that they're not allowed to have wants or desires. Now we've taught them that they're allowed to want them and express them, but also to pretend that they don't want them. All those pictures of Jason Momoa and half-naked firefighters with captions that say, for women, of course, typing these things, that they wish that someone would burn their house down because it's got a picture of a half-naked fireman there, or a group of half-naked firemen with rippling abs. Here in America, look for what's important and nothing else. Wait, there's money, but I don't have that. Look at the conditions I live in. A lot of the stuff that I've collected, it's to try to better my life, but without a piece of property to put it on. We are perpetual victims because no matter what, we're breaking the law. We're homeless. No matter what we do or where we go, we are breaking the law because we exist in public without a place of our own. And getting any services that are supposed to help us out requires jumping through months or years of hoops while being victimized out here on the streets over and over and over again. And those of us who don't do drugs, we get to see meth addict after meth addict after meth addict. Places that primarily help out only meth addicts. I was told that people out at Helping Hands, and this is one thing that a lot of women do just to be contrarian. It's not just women, but men as well. So that lady Susan, she gave us a lot of useful information, but there's a lot of parts in it where, for example, when I said, I was told that they expect you to go through a bunch of classes and stuff like that, and, go through a bunch of stuff in order to stay there. She verified that's true. That you have to pay rent. They call it something different, but it's not a homeless shelter. They are paying rent out there, even if it's somebody. How is somebody who's disabled gonna be able to do that? Especially with physical disabilities. Especially when I have to keep and maintain a vehicle because my mobility sucks. Meanwhile, it's unsafe for me to drive a vehicle. That's because of psychological trauma, as well as physical trauma. If I overexert myself, my legs won't work properly. Sometimes as I'm going down the road, my vehicle starts feathering. That's not because there's anything wrong with my vehicle. It's because I'm in severe amount of pain trying to drive somewhere. Somewhere where hopefully I'll be left alone, but hopefully I'll be quasi in public. I'm always afraid a police officer will catch me by myself and trump up whatever excuses he wants. It's even scarier up in the mountains where I don't have signal, or I can't record it live. With a lot of people who claim that they want to help me, I want to verify who they are first. Before Natalie was killed, all my friends on my Facebook, I knew all of them, with the exception of one. Now most of those friends are gone. Many of the friends that I knew before Natalie died, they're dead. Their profiles, well, they're all memorials. All rest in pieces, and I got so many of those. Meanwhile, I'm a victim of sexual assault, physical assault, and a lot of them. But you don't want to hear that that could happen to a man, and just because that happened to a man, he should go to the back of the bus because a woman has it worse. Are you sure about that? A woman gets the benefit of the doubt in all cases. All of them. And a lot of women tell me about how they didn't get the benefit of the doubt. Well, there's other factors there that come into play, aren't there? People try to discredit your name by whatever means possible. But it's very rare for a male, especially, to make false reports. It is very rare. Unless he's doing so for a woman who has asked him to. Gender bias is very real, and we all have to deal with it. We all have to take it. We're treated like it's our choice, like it's our decision. We pretend that autism is, well, it is a communication disability, but that communication disability is your disrespect for us. Your disrespect. You don't even bother to find out why we're coming to you for help. You're too busy asking questions. You might even be asking the right questions, but it's all stuff that we're going to answer. There's a reason we're trying to tell you in the order that we're telling you, and there's a reason we're starting where we're starting. It's so that you don't get confused. And also so you don't talk over the top of me. Because eventually, we get talked over enough. People don't answer our questions seriously, or they try to answer a question with a question. They try to redirect it, change the subject, treat us like we're mentally retarded and don't know what's going on in our own lives. The term mentally ill is used to discredit us when we try to turn in our predators. Unless we have a friend or family member to make sure that the law is followed. A lot of people kept sending me to the people that you're supposed to go to, but because of those very same bias, same thing happened there. When you respect somebody, you don't send them on to someone else. You listen to them intently and you help them to turn it in. And you are more likely to do that with someone you find physically attractive. By the way, that goes the same for men and women. Across both genders as well. If a man is going to hire a man, he is more likely to hire a man who is good looking. If a man is going to hire a woman, he's more likely to hire a woman who's good looking. If a woman is going to hire a woman, she is more likely to hire a woman who's good looking. And the general trend is one that is good looking, but not as good looking as she is. Social order and pecking order is very real. Humans want to pretend that their philosophy makes it so that they don't act like animals. Oh, well, there's a philosophical reason why I'm acting like an animal, right? Or why it's not an animalistic behavior out of you, right? I can't go to the KKK for help because I'm too Jewish. I can't go to Jewish people for help because I'm not a practicing Jew. I can't go to BLM for help because I'm not black. I'm simply not taken seriously. And then there's the lack of resources. See, being falsely accused of anything in America is expensive. Not being allowed to go to your own court dates, not being allowed to face your accusers, not being allowed to show evidence. Because you didn't have the money for a real lawyer. I needed the money to get myself a safe place, and I couldn't. Because police officers were too busy trying to paint to the American public that I was some sort of schizophrenic weirdo loser who rapes and kills people and assaults police officers. They did everything that they could, along with the prosecutors and the judges, to draw it out as long as possible, not to look at evidence. To all prey heavy on the mentally ill tag. They used the mentally ill insinuations to prevent anything that I was saying from being heard. Any of my evidence from being shown. And then when it was said that I was mentally competent, by that point, they're not allowed to show the evidence because nobody did anything about it because of mentally ill. All of those body cameras with those officers should have been released to me and to the public, and that was denied. Why? Because I was broke, and because I was being bullied everywhere that I went. I was being harmed by officers, and then I was being punched through a bunch of hoops you have to jump through when you're falsely accused of anything. They tried to do the same thing at Clearview Behavioral Health. You get to see how they're closed down now. These people and places are all verifiable. Tara Smith, sometimes I accidentally type Tara Miller in some of the recordings with her, but you can find both of those. Adult Protective Services. You get to see how I am talked over and people just want to redirect it and change the subject and change the topic. talk over me, not listen to understand. They're not listening to the details. They get bored and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to actually look at the evidence. They want me to give them the Cliff's Notes, but they're going to interrupt the Cliff's Notes. And then you've got 988 Suicide Hotline. We've recorded them on here. If you look at the mandated reporter training, you get to see that not even one mandated reporter followed through and did their jobs as a mandated reporter. You also get to see that somehow magically I'm too disabled to have real evidence in their minds and in their eyes. Too disabled to have evidence. I must have hallucinated this thing right here and everything that's on it. I must have hallucinated all of the bags and bags and bags of evidence, and then there's all of the bags of garbage on top. Because I'd had to live in this vehicle, because I have physical disabilities as well. When you pretend that somebody's a stalker, and you pretend that across state lines, like Natalie Bollinger and Alicia Bollinger did, and you pretend that he threatened to kill your family and yourselves in Virginia, and you claim that to his friends elsewhere. Matty Boa was my friend too. Before I was even out of Virginia, Matty Boa was getting all sorts of evil, as people tend to do when somebody they have a crush on pretends they were victimized. And they were on drugs, but that doesn't matter. I'm supposed to feel sorry for them because they're on drugs. Well, I did feel sorry for them. They told me all of their excuses why they were on drugs, why they got strung out. Their dad's beating on them and raping them and shit like that. But nobody listens to the homeless. That's one of the great things about Wallflowers. Nobody's going to listen to the nerds. They're not popular. Nobody's going to listen to the homeless. They're not popular. Nobody's going to believe someone who's mentally ill. They're automatically discredited, and people talk over them like they're too retarded to know what abuse is. But then when we literally have to show an example of it, hey, this is what I'm going through. How does it feel? It doesn't feel very good. Well, I have a lot of people doing that stuff. You don't understand the financial crisis this puts a person in. You say, oh, well, what about all that free money that you're getting from the government? Really? What free money? It costs more than that to live. All of the resources that I had were spent paying the government or running around in circles to the places that these people are telling me to go to. The therapists, the doctors, the nurses, the police officers. All of them telling me to do things I'm incapable of, and I try to explain it to them, but all they got to do is talk over the important parts, the details. So then I have to talk faster so I can at least show that I said it. You interrupt me to tell me to calm down and to take a breath. I am breathing. I have to practice breathing exercises so that I don't stutter. Because if I stutter, you're going to treat me like I'm a retard. And then you pretend you're not like that and you don't do it. But you all do it. And that's the most disgusting thing. Is that I had to record you doing it. You said I slandered your name. And in those recordings, it showed that I absolutely did not slander your name. Those words came out of your mouth. Same as with Natalie Bollinger. What is it out of everything that I said about her before she was killed? What was it that she was claiming as slander that hasn't already been proven that it is not slander? It is absolutely the truth. These things did come out of her mouth and were typed from her to me, from her email address and her Facebook to me. Meanwhile, I'm surrounded by a bunch of people, mentally ill people, who I'm sent to for peer support, Since the mandated reporters don't want to do their jobs, they just want to talk over me and pawn me off on someone else. This is another one of those things they're taught not to do. Here in Oregon, they have to turn it in immediately. If they don't, it's a $2,000 fine. The first time. How many times when I'm trying to explain to them about my disabilities and how they affect me, how many times am I talked over? Where does the money that's supposed to go to actually helping me actually go? I'm supposed to go to these mandated reporters who are paid to do this job, right? But then they pawn me off on someone else. Often they tell me to go to friends and family, or they'd send me some phone numbers to write down and call, and I have to call them alone. And that's the part that makes it so that all of these places are able to profit. They're able to write me down and write my name down and show that somebody called their hotline, so therefore they should get more money, but they don't help those people. Suicide hotline pushes people to commit suicide. Forcing a disabled person out onto the streets to be victimized by drug dealers and drug addicts and princesses who didn't get what they wanted. Who abused Natalie Bollinger, her father, her Uncle Troy, her mother, her stepmothers, her sister, her boyfriends. Who did these people target? They targeted me because she was embarrassed. She went around telling all those stories about people to a wallflower. She also tried to pretend like she was in love with me, or she really did think she was in love with me. Mandy Singer seemed to think that, yeah, Natalie had a little bit more than a little crush on me. She also seemed to think I was an idiot for not realizing it right from the start. Well, here's the thing. You pretend that we're social morons. No, we're not. You just assume that we are. And therefore, when we tell you that we have made an observation, you pretend that we're stupid or we don't know what we're talking about. And then you prove to us that we're right. Again. And then you want us to shut up. How dare we rub it in your face, as you call it. Despite what the laws say for the disabled, those laws are not followed. If you're a man, they're especially not followed. And if you're homeless, well, you stand no chance at all. The most marginalized people in this country are specifically disabled homeless men. When it comes to women, the only category that they have the lead on in being victimized is sexual assault. And even that, in recent days, we have come to find, well, how many thousands of women on Facebook and YouTube last year bragged about making false claims against a man? How many of these web sleuths that have got on my Facebook and pretended like they're going to help me have had boyfriends that broke up with them, so they claim that he was into having sex with children and wearing girls' undergarments, being into little boys, being a homosexual. I mean, come on now. And we've got this stigma attached to all of us. I can't separate a well-wisher on the internet who truly wishes well from somebody who's just spying out of curiosity because they watched something on YouTube. Many of the Natalie Bollinger stories are told in other countries, and they're told differently in each of these countries. Just as each of these ones that are in English all tell the story differently. And people don't understand a lot of stuff that is easily tied together with my evidence. But that evidence isn't important because I don't have money. All of my money is spent paying. Oh, we've got someone called Made of Rubber wanting to type some troll shit on here. We're just going to get rid of him. That's something easy to do on the internet, not so easy to do in real life. He typed everyone who smokes meth does that. He also typed drugs are for kid lovers. Not necessarily. The gateway drug is trauma. Primarily childhood trauma. Most of these drug users out here started off getting raped and beaten by their parents. When Brittany Richmond came forward about her father molesting her as a child, he did go to prison, but not for very long. And the family ostracized her for it. Her brother, well, two of her brothers anyway, but the whole family threw her away. She was the victim and they threw her away. I'm out here, I'm expected by these mandated reporters to go to meth addicts as peer support. Are you kidding me? Or opiate users. Or former opiate users who have crushes on current opiate users. I'm not tall, I'm not physically attractive. I can't take care of myself anymore. I can't protect myself. But I'm talked to as if I'm able to do all those things. When I try to explain to people what it's like living with my disabilities, by the way, my primary disability is your assumptions. Your assumptions of men, your assumptions of meth addicts, your assumptions of Tourette syndrome, your assumptions of schizophrenia, your assumptions of autism. The traits of autism cited by those in the Netherlands who wanted legal assisted termination of life. You get to see that their reasons are the number one reasons for people ending their lives in this country. Those are also symptoms of abuse. Those are things that our abusers do to us through gaslighting, physical assaults, taking away our ability to communicate with our friends and families, spreading rumors that'll make them not want to help you, playing on bias against men, against the disabled. You get to hear how I get everyone has problems. Everyone has problems. They're not the same. When somebody is called mentally ill, that is like saying that they're schizophrenic. That's what you're trying to insinuate. That they don't know any better? If it's somebody that's your loved one, or that they're too dangerous to be around if it's not a loved one. But it's always an insult. It is always condescending and damaging and dismissive of us as human beings. Since everyone takes part in it, it means that everybody knows it exists. When I say everybody, I don't mean literally everybody, but you get to hear Danelle Boggs when I went to her about abuse here. Did she do her job as a mandated reporter? No, she talked over me at very important parts to make sure she didn't get too many details about important things, and made sure that she was dismissive, but she was also very direct about one important part. Well, two of them. How the system doesn't work as they're pretending it does. That's why she quit her last job at TFCC. And even though she knew I was trying to turn in TFCC, she wanted to send me back to TFCC for case management. They wouldn't do it for case management. They set me up for therapy instead. I recorded all that on my YouTube channel, but nobody will hear that until I'm dead. The police blow us off. Now some of the rest of you are starting to feel that. But just know that when you want to sin, when you want to take it out on others, when your life is the roughest, that's when you spend the most money on sin, statistically. That's also when you go out looking for someone to victimize because you spent more money than usual feeling sorry for yourself at the bar. There's also more people at the bar who did the same thing. But you're not allowed to fight in the bar, or you won't be allowed back in the bar, as long as you're not too drunk, or you're just pleasant and stumbly enough to make it outside. Now who are you going to victimize? We've taught men that their problem in the United States is they're not working hard enough. Meanwhile, they're expected to do all the manual labor stuff. And we're supposed to be directed by the women. Apparently, that's our assigned gender roles in a relationship. A lot of times when a person asks a man how his day is, if he says it's fine like he's expected to, well, good. If he doesn't say that, anything else is construed as negative. And they want to get out of there as soon as possible. Autistic people are very good at reading tone. That's why many of you refuse to do anything when there's a tone involved, because you want to take stuff that is sarcastic and twist it later on. Or you want to pretend that because somebody told you did something bad that they're attacking you. And then you go run around people saying, oh, he attacked me. He attacked me. How dare you attack my friend? Oh, he seems like a real winner to me. Why didn't somebody just put a bullet in that bozo? Many of the predators that I told on had to move on because they were committing felonies against others. That includes law enforcement officers. There's also a lot of them who were arrested for doing the things I said they did. Except they did it to other people after me, and those are the ones you cared about. They did these things to me to destroy my name and forced me into desperate situations. My friends, they weren't there. Only in words. Only in promises they never kept. Because one thing that was most important was for them to come forward with me about what they knew. I can't physically defend myself. I can't physically take care of myself. I cannot mentally take care of myself or defend myself because I am overwhelmed. I am in a constant state of pain. I have Tourette's syndrome, but without a friend or family member there, it's just going to be assumed that I'm on drugs by most people. And then there's people's assumptions of autism, because autism speaks lies to everyone about what autism really is. They show videos of how they treat autistic people, And watching it, I can't help but cringe through the whole thing because the parents are abusing those children. When somebody is stimming, that is okay. It doesn't hurt anyone for them to stim. And we shouldn't have police officers murdering us for stimming. And then there's situational mutism. You have no idea how many times I have been abused because I couldn't speak in a situation because I was too afraid. Primarily because of abuse by police officers. Without a friend or family member, because of the assumption of guilt, the assumption of drug use, the assumption of mental illness for the homeless. As the news loves to paint for y'all a horrible picture of all of us. Like we're all violent schizophrenics out here raping each other all day, every day. Smoking meth and raping each other. And worshiping the devil. We always got to have that part put in, right? How many of these so-called Christians that wanted to be predatory towards me wanted to pretend like I was a devil worshiper as an excuse? You get to see how violent Christians have been throughout history. They've killed more of their own people than all other religions combined have killed of Christians. Who persecutes Christians the most? Christians. I'm told about this separation of church and state, but meanwhile, many of the officers I went to about the abuse, like William Barr, wanted to tell me about giving it to God, right after telling me stories about him killing people. And how many people have been recorded on my channel talking about killing people, stating that they're going to go kill people over and over and over again. Nearly everybody that I talk to about the situation, all they can do is talk about killing people. Sarah Bacon. Of course, there's Christian, and then there's Chris Stafford. And then, of course, there's that old guy who hangs out at the Fred Meyers, who's pretty off his rocker and wants to go kill some rich billionaires in Canada. Like, I'm having to go to people who are schizophrenic and delusional and on drugs for help out here on the streets for peer support. Meanwhile, they're trying to focus on survival too, but all their resources every month are going to pay to go to places who are only getting free money out of you showing up there. They're not doing anything about the abuse or allowing you a place where you can sit in peace and quiet and do what it is that they're asking you to do. In order to write a police report, especially in a situation like this, I need a quiet place to do it. And don't give me a time limit because it's not going to be done in 10 minutes. Understand that I have back injuries. It prevents me from carrying the things that I need to carry in and out of a building every day. If I had a safe place of my own, I wouldn't need to do that. When I was in Chapel, Nebraska and had low income, I didn't have enough money to live there. But I did have stuff in there that I could work on, and I slowly collected what I needed. But then people were disappearing, like David and Katie Saltzman. People who are going to help. But it's pretty universal that none of them have enough respect for me to stop talking over me and dismissing what I'm going through and how it feels. This social isolation, people only talk to me to tell me about their problems, or to talk over me and to tell me about some place that they heard of, or tell me to call some number. The problem is they're not listening to what my problem is. They're just trying to throw a bunch of ideas out there, knowing nothing about the situation, and then going, oh, well, I tried. It's not my fault you didn't follow my advice. I fight for euthanization for those of us who want it. in exactly the same situations where I fight for us to have a voice and have basic human rights. If you're not going to allow us our basic human rights, yes, we should be allowed euthanasia.